There's a story in the Friedrich Rebbe Siches. It's a compelling story. It's a very interesting story. It's a sweet story. The Rebbe Rashab was a young man. I think it was before Bar Mitzvah. And he sees his grandparents. He sees the Alter Rebbe, he sees the Mittler Rebbe, he sees the Tzemach Tzedek. And he was a very earnest person. The Rebbe Rashab was never a child. I mean, if you know the history of Chabad Rebbes, some of the Chabad Rebbes were troublemakers. They were fearless kids. Some of the Chabad Rebbes were never children. They had an earnestness when they were 2 years old that if they were not the children of Rebbes, you would say they had mental illness. They were serious in a way that's not normal for children. Our Rebbe was like that. I think the Alter Rebbe was like that. The Tzemach Tzedek used to play. The Rebbe Marash used to make trouble. The Friedrich Rebbe used to make trouble. I'll tell you, there was a Jew who lived in New York whose name was Abdav. I heard of Yisrael Gordon over Shalom. There was a Jew who lived in New York whose name was Abdav Shifrin. He died in 1943, died 81 years ago. Abdav Shifrin lived in America. He was a chassid from the Rebbe Marash, from the fourth Lubavitcher Rebbe. He left Russia, came to America, I don't know when, but he remembered the Friedrich Rebbe as a boy. And he said that when the Friedrich was a little boy, they used to talk as follows. The Friedrich Rebbe was always getting into trouble. He was a troublemaker. He once took a shepsela, a goat, he tabled it in the mikveh, and he put snuff up its nose. You know what snuff is? And the poor goat was sneezing and sneezing and sneezing. He didn't know how to get the snuff out of his nose. So he said, the Rebbe hat ein Sohn and there is a Stiefel. The Rebbe has only one son and he's a troublemaker. What's going to be the future? And then the David said, und ist ausgewachsen, und ist geworden a Rebbe, und noch wie a Rebbe. That's how he said it. And he grew up, and he became a Rebbe. And what kind of a Rebbe? Rav David Shafrin remembers the Friedrich Rebbe as a little boy putting stuff up the nose of a shepsele. So some Rebbes, as children, they were kids. Wir können verstehen solche Sachen. Tzaddikim, a Rebbe is always a tzaddik, but somehow they managed to make trouble. But some of them had an earnestness about them which was not normal. 2-year-olds. You looked at they looked like burdened, you know. The Rebbe Rashab was that kind of a child. He was very serious from a very, very early age. Very unbelievable. It was frighteningly earnest. I mean, if you live in a world of holy people, you're not afraid, you know. If you're regular people, you say, what's wrong with this kid, you know? And he had a dream. And he saw his grandparents. And it was very, very moving to him. He was a kid, he was a child, before Bar Mitzvah. He walks into his father's room, and as soon as he walks in his father's room, his father says to him, and what did you dream tonight? And he understood that his father knew about the dream. And it was too much. Having the dream was a lot. That his father knew the dream is more. But that his father is talking to him about it, he became very emotional. And his father said, relax, get used to it. It's going to happen again. It's going to become a part of your life. You know, you're on this level. This is the first time. It's going to happen again. In other words, don't get so emotional. Get used to it. The Rebbe Rash was, so to speak, bringing him into this world. But only the greatest Nevi'im send messages, certainly to other people. So, what time is it? Let's start Halacha Dalet. Okay? I'm just doing this because I want to. Dalet. Kol HaNevi'im, all prophets. Ein misnabim b'chol eis sheyirtzu. You cannot become a prophet when you want. You know why? Because it's up to God. That's why. When I prepared this halacha, what did I think of? Getting an answer from the Rebbe. You guys don't relate to it. Because now you write a letter, I don't know what you do, but if you want to put it in English, you put it in English, you open it up and you read, I don't know, you get an answer. We were growing up. You wrote the Rebbe a letter. Sometimes within 15 minutes you had an answer. And sometimes there was no answer. And you could wait a day, you could wait a week, wait a month. And sometimes the answer was no answer, and sometimes the answer would come a week late. And people would go out of their minds. Why? Because you couldn't twist the Rebbe's head. You'd go to the secretary, I need an answer. You don't understand that. I need an answer. And the secretary would say, to work for the Rebbe, meant that you understood that you can't force him. He didn't forget about you. He didn't overlook your letter. There's stuff going on that's not based on normal human, it's spiritual. And when you needed an answer and you didn't get an answer, that's life, that's how it was. And oftentimes the answer never came. And there's so many stories of people needing answers, and they come to the secretaries, get me an answer. And the secretary says, listen here, you want me to make it up? I can make it up. You want an answer from the boss? The boss does what he wants, when he wants, how he wants. Tzadikim deim lebeinu. When you want to become a Navi from a Lakus, if the Eibishter wanted, yeah, he didn't want, no. And sometimes a guy told me a story, a true story, labels this man, it's in his book. It's a great story. Him and his brother, they're Holocaust survivors, they came here as kids, as teenagers. And the Rebbe was a father to them, I guess that's the best way to put it. The Rebbe told him when he first got here, if you ever need anything, come to me. If you ever need anything, come to me. So they were investing. And there was an opportunity to invest in Florida. It was called Miami Towers. They could have made an awful lot of money, but the investment was very high. Then, in the 1980s, every person, there were 5 partners, had to put in $1 million. It was a lot of money. And he told his partners, he put in the contract, that it's conditional on the Rebbe's approval. The Rebbe doesn't approve, he's pulling out. And they agreed. He wrote the Rebbe, no answer. He wrote the Rebbe, no answer. It went on for weeks. And the pressure is huge. The opportunity is great. The upside was very great. And he kept copsing himself and says, Binyam, I need an answer. Anyway, it got to the point where there was no tomorrow. No tomorrow means that if the Rebbe doesn't answer, he's pulling out because he doesn't have an answer. He couldn't wait anymore. The Rebbe had gone to the oil. The Rebbe had gone to the mikveh. And he was on his way to walk out of it. He was holding his bag on the way to walk out of the office and get in his car and go to the oil. And Binyamin walks in and says to the Rebbe, label and battle, need an answer. So the Rebbe put his bag down, took the scrap of a back of an envelope, a scrap of paper, and wrote, Malahem or Lepizer Nefesh Alehem, which means, why do they need to spread their wings so far and be spread all over the world like there's enough business locally? That was the answer. He handed it to Binyamin, went to the oil. They got the answer, and the Rebbe said, don't do it, which made no sense because they could have made many, many millions of dollars. Weeks later, there was the crash, Black Monday in 1988. They would have lost their pants. They would have ended up. But the Rebbe didn't answer, the Rebbe didn't answer, the Rebbe didn't answer, the Rebbe did. Why? Why did the Rebbe answer? Why did the Rebbe answer? And the answer came in such a, like for the Rebbe it was like no big deal, you know. But the Rebbe did, there's a reason why the Rebbe didn't answer. And trust me, bigger Chassidim, when they had that test, failed it. They said, okay, he'll probably say yes, and they went ahead and then everything would blow up. These people were not going to go into business without the Rebbe's approval. They will lose a lot of possible wealth, but they were not, and the Rebbe waited and waited and waited. This is a mashal, because a tzaddik in this aspect is like a lakus. You can't force God's hand. My personal opinion, they were supposed to go bankrupt. That was written in the cards. Really? But they had so much amunah that they changed it. That's how I understand that story. That's how I understand the story. These people came from Europe. They had nothing. They had a shirt on their back. They became very successful. And they lived in the success for many years. Everybody gets a turn. Wealth is like Galgal HaChayzer. And the Rebbe doesn't answer, 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 and they don't go in. And they were zoiche. That's how I look at it. Now, am I right? I don't know.